Hello, welcome to the Crownsmen Show. I'm your host, Jared Downey. Joining me is Gowdy Molina.
Hello.
I feel like I really went announcery voice on that one. Like, hello, welcome to the show, everyone. Okay. I gotta settle down. This is gonna be a fairly long show because we're gonna be unpacking. It's gonna be a different angle today, Gowdy.
Yeah,
We had Terex Finlay on not even a year ago, pretty recently, actually.
recently, yeah.
Yeah. So we had them on. And now we're having Finlay Eastern featured, which is selling Terex Finlay equipment.
Mhm.
But we're doing another layer where we're having David Robinson on, and he is with Rockmart Slate, a slate quarry out of. I'll get him to confirm that. I believe it's out of Georgia. So we're going to be sort of looking. Terex Finlay is actually not going to be on the show. It's going to be Finlay Eastern, and then Rockmart Slate,
Mhm.
and talking about the process, the equipment that they're using, and then different applications for the equipment. So very interesting episode today. Before we do that, Gowdy, sponsors.
Absolutely. Alrighty, let's start off with Fenner Dunlop. Monitoring the health of your steel cord conveyor belts has never been easier. Powered by Eagle Eye, Fenner Dunlop's Bird's Eye identifies potential belt issues before they have the opportunity to create the need for larger, more time intensive, and expensive action. Um, Log in from your smartphone, tablet, or computer to access all your steel cord belts from one screen. Your Bird's Eye subscription also includes online remote service and call center support, on-demand web reports, and yearly review of your system performance. You can visit them at fennerdunlopamericas.com for more information. Next up, we also have Savannah Equipment. Did you know that Savannah Equipment is an electrical supplier in both Canada and the United States? Their electrical inventory includes breakers, disconnects, EFC electric motors, starters, tech cable, cab tire motor control centers, and transformers. For your new and refurbished electrical equipment, you can visit savannahEquipment.com, where you will find more equipment every day. Of course, we also have the Bucket Shop. The Bucket Shop provides wear solutions for all mining bucket applications that extend life cycles of 3 to 4 times. They help clients improve productivity and reduce operating costs by providing innovative options, including their 5 piece cast lip system, cast heel shrouds, and mechanical 2 and 5 piece buckets with optional disposable front ends. Beyond buckets, they provide truck box assemblies and liners, custom builds, undercarriage systems, ground engaging tools, and abrasive blasting and painting. Begin your savings today and visit thebucketshop.ca. And last but not least, we've got Power Zone Equipment. When you need a specialized team of world class engineers for your oil and gas pipelines, dewatering, or any fluid handling needs, you want to visit powerzone.com. In addition to their inventory of rebuilt pumps, motors, engines, they also have an amazing team to design and engineer your systems, no matter the challenge, no matter the location. Get in the zone with Power Zone. Visit them at powerzone.com. There we go.
Okay, thank you, Gowdy. And I think every single sponsor on on this episode has also done
Their own show. They
their own
all
show,
they all have their own show. So definitely go check them up on our YouTube channel.
and I think they're on separate shows. There's Crownsman Energy, the Crownsman Show. I think there's a
Yeah.
Mining Now in there.
Yep.
Okay, David, welcome to the show. It's great to have you on. So Rockmart's like, can you just tell me a little bit about them? Where you're located and what you're producing.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me this morning. I hope you guys are enjoying your morning. Rockmart Slate was purchased by the president of our company in 1993. It's a privately held corporation today. The slate deposit has been here for many, many years, and the first business transactions out of this facility took place in 1850. So there's a long history here with the quarry in the town. And in fact, the quarry has a big part in the origin of the town. Many of the Welsh settlers came to this area to mine the slate because of its unique physical properties.
And so is that the same quarry that's in the same location that from the 1950s?
The 1850s, that is
1850s.
correct. The ground that I'm sitting on right now was being mined back in the 1850s, prior to the Civil War.
Wow, wow. And is that a common? So you're out in Georgia. Is that a common? Are there a lot of quarries out in slate quarries out in Georgia, or is that kind of unique to the state?
We are the only fully permitted slate quarry in the state of Georgia, and we're very proud of the fact that we are the only fully permitted slate quarry. We're also very proud of our history and our connection to the local town here.
What are you producing the slate for? I'm sure there's people watching that'll probably know the answer before I do, but I'm not an expert in the field. So could you
Right.
sort of who are you distributing it to, and for what purpose?
Absolutely. So we produce products that go into the landscape markets. We produce products for commercial construction projects, and we also produce products for industry. So our slate chips go in various sizes, everything from tiny little fish tank gravel all the way up to giant boulders. All of those products go out into the landscape markets, and we have a dealer network that we supply all over the eastern half of the United States.
Oh, okay. So the distribution is Eastern US then.
Yes. Not the East Coast, the eastern half of the US. Yes.
Right. Okay.
Then we produce products that go into commercial and construction industry. Those products are also distributed across the eastern half of the country as well. We also produce a fine product that goes into the seal coat industry, and we're a supplier. We are the source for many of the most popular, biggest names in the seal coat industry across the United States.
So, just to give a little more setup, so these dealers are selling then. So you're not selling to end users. You have the dealers that are across, and they're delivering it to landscape companies and people like that.
Well, our Rockmart Slate is our parent corporation. Now we can sell direct to the public through our landscape division that we own internally, but we sell to a network of dealers that resell to the end user.
I see. This is obviously a part what we're focusing on is the aggregate side of the business. So could you give me
Mhm.
a little bit of just a scope of the operation? Is this a 24-hour type operation? Are people coming in shifts, 8 hours a day? What's sort of the setup and even the scale of what you're doing?
Okay. So as it relates to the quarry industry, we are privately owned. We're a family operated business. We only operate Monday through Friday, regular weekdays on one shift during the day. We do not run 24 hours a day. We're a much smaller volume quarry than, say, for example, a larger quarry that produces products that are used by the DOT or something of that nature.
So, David, would you be able to give me sort of for lack of a better word, your sort of internal supply chain? So you're doing it in an 8-hour shift, Monday through Friday. What's sort of the team doing? They show up. What is sort of that whole process that they're dealing with?
Okay, so we are the source. We're the very beginning of the supply chain for the product. It originates on our property here. We actually mine the slate here in our quarry. So we contract the drilling out. A driller comes in, we lay out a pattern, they pull a shot. We then move the equipment into place where we process the stone, and it goes out through the various different processes where we focus on what industry that product's going to be moved to. And it depends on sales and customer demand. So the process used to be that we had one crusher, and we would get a higher demand in a different industry, and we would move the crusher and the team into a different location and shift from producing one product for one industry to a different product. What happened was our relationship with Finlay taught us so much about how we can increase output and save dollars in the process. We were able to purchase two crushers from Finlay Eastern, and now we're running two operations simultaneously with the exact same number of people on site.
So you can, in a sense, you can have multiple demands at the same time, and your capacity isn't getting lowered on one side if that's not the situation you need.
That's correct. We're able to run two swim lanes simultaneously, and we're producing product. We actually run three swim lanes simultaneously. So we're producing product for the landscape markets, the construction industry, and for the seal coat industry all at the same time now because of the equipment and because of the expertise and the knowledge of the folks at Finlay Eastern.
So you said part of the way that you were able to sort of set up, these multiple crushers and this new type of operation you have now was in part because of Finlay Eastern. Is that an ongoing discussion with them? And even in the maintenance and things, can you sort of just do the setup of that relationship you have with them?
Right. So when Keith originally came in, he took a look at our operation and he told me that he could really help us out. And and from that moment in time, which was a few years ago, Keith and his team have been in and out of our quarry multiple times. And the relationship has evolved over time, and the trust and the respect has grown so much that they've been able to help us understand how to produce more product but lower cost at the same time. And it's really the equipment that helped us overcome the challenge. So I'm running one crusher versus one new crusher versus an old unit that we used to have. I'm putting so much more product on the ground with this equipment. And it's much more fuel efficient. So I'm saving money on that. And then I don't have to work as many overtime hours to produce the same volume of product. So when we bought the first crusher from Finlay, it yielded significant gains for us. We then went back and purchased another crusher from them, which enabled us to kind of run multiple swim lanes at the same time. Now we're serving multiple industries at the same time, and we're still seeing greater yields and lower overhead operating costs, both in labor and in materials. So Finlay really educated us on how the equipment was the right fit for our operation and how we could yield better results. So the partnership has been incredibly beneficial for us.
Yeah, thanks. And I want to thank you for coming on the show, David. I've worked now with.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I've worked with Terex Finlay, as a manufacturer, and now getting to work with Finlay Eastern. I mean, and I talk to a lot of companies like daily on all different industries, and just the level of care, even in prepping for this show, the level of care they put into what they're doing. I mean, if that translates into the service they're providing for you, I'm sure it's been a good experience. So thank you for being on the
Right.
show, and hopefully we get to connect soon, and maybe at some point do a more long form and dig into your operation a little more. We're going to jump over to
Love to do it.
have Kelly on the show and talk about some of the specs of the equipment.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we're jumping over to Kelly Preston. He is with Finlay Eastern. Welcome to the show, Kelly. It's great to have you on.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, I will say David gave you some glowing reviews.
That's good to hear. He's a great guy to work with, and it's just been with him, I guess, 3 years probably after him, trying to work with him. I basically went in a couple years ago, and they had one piece of equipment there that they were having to use and change when they needed to make different things for different applications, and just kind of went in and figured out what they needed to do different, or what problem could I fix with them. And so just built a relationship with him and the quarry manager, and kind of figured out what products they were making, what they needed to change, what kind of volume they needed, and things like that. And we were able to get them rented them first a I-120 impact crusher, which was a step up, very much a step up from the machine that they were using before. So that allowed much more productivity, much higher volumes of material an hour. So that that was the first issue, was being able to produce enough material. So with a bigger, newer crusher, they were able to start handling that.
Yeah, and then he was also talking about sort of the be able to switch, because before they were having to switch back and forth between based on market demand. Now they can basically have two market demands going at the same time and that sort of thing. It actually, I'll be honest, what struck me is I thought, I wonder what we are doing internally. And if there was someone, there was a Terex Finlay for the production side, or a Finlay Eastern, I should say, for the production side, that
Right.
would come in and be like, hey, you could do this and get twice as much out of it. So
they went from one crusher and one 2-deck incline screen to now they're running 2 impact crushers, one heavy duty scalping screen, and 2 2-deck finish screens. So they're able to take an 883 plus that they've gotten from us recently, and pre-screen material before it even goes through a crusher. So what they can do on maybe a day that they have waste material or excess material built up, they can run it through this heavy duty scalping screen and get a finished product out of it without even having to crush anything. So when they do a blast there at Rockmart Slate, they end up with various size of materials, all the way from 3/8 minus all the way up to boulders that are 1 foot, 2 foot cubic. And so they're able to take those materials, because this is a very robust, large scalping deck, and take all those size materials and put them through this machine and come up with a product that they can then take. So what they do is they have a 2-inch top deck on the bottom and a 3/8 deck on, I'm sorry, 2-inch top deck, a 3/8 bottom deck. Basically what they're looking for, most of the value in their products is between that 3/8 and 2-inch. So they can put that material, raw material, across the screen, and in the overs pile, the material that goes directly across the screen and comes off the end, they end up with material that can go directly into a crusher or can be stockpiled and crushed later. The medium sized material that comes off the bottom deck, that doesn't go through it, that comes off of it, is the material they take to a wash plant. So they take everything from 2-inch down to 3/8 and run it through a Terex wash plant and create value to those products. And those are the products that they sell in the industrial, commercial, and landscape applications. Anything that comes out underneath that 3/8 is what they sell in some of the other applications. So it's much cheaper to run a screen as opposed to a crusher. All of our crushers and screens are very good on consuming fuel and low maintenance costs, but of course it costs much less to run a screen than it does a crusher. So they can get that size product out of only screening material that they're having to put less money into the making of that.
So when you say a screen, are these vibrating screens, or are some vibrating and some aren't, depending on the application? What's that setup?
This is all of the ones they use, they're all vibrating. They don't have any trommel screens there, but this is a 2-deck vibrating screen that has a metal infeed system. So instead of one of the great things about the 883 Plus is it doesn't have a rubber belt infeed system. So if you can imagine taking a big excavator and dumping all that large slate, which is very abrasive, into the hopper of that machine, it doesn't have a rubber infeed system. So it's not going to get punctured, put holes in it. It's not going to wear out as fast. It actually has a linked metal system that all those large pieces get dropped on and won't damage it. And it feeds it up into the screen deck, and the screen deck vibrates, the material spreads out across it.
Is that quite common for your customers? And I want to quickly touch on a little bit of scope as well about Finlay Eastern, just to sort of understand your market. But is there a lot of customers do they start with rental units? Is that pretty common in your business?
It is. So a lot of people will rent the machine to figure out if it's something that they need. Maybe they need a smaller one, maybe they need a bigger one. But we do a RPO situation, a rental purchase. And basically a customer, if they rent a machine for 2 months, they can take all of that rental money paid towards the machine and use it as a down payment. So we have a lot of customers who will on the contractor side of it, who will build that rental rate into their bid for the job. Then they can apply that rental for the first 2 months towards the machine for the purchase. So it basically creates a down payment for them.
Right. Okay.
So we have a lot of customers who will rent the machine for a month or two and then purchase it after that.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course you're working with them to make sure what you're actually, even in that initial rental, is the right unit for what their application is.
Well, the last thing you want to do is put in a machine to somebody that's not the right one.
Right. I mean, it's called the company's called Finlay Eastern, and they're a Terex Finlay dealer. So I am assuming there was right from the beginning there was a pretty strong relationship there.
So the company was started in 2017. Right off the bat, we partnered with Terex Finlay, and so there's more of a presence of the Finlay equipment in out west in the middle United States and up in the Northeast. And so this was an opportunity to have a dealer where there's never been one before. There's never been one in the Southeast. So it was an opportunity to start a new dealership to cover area that hasn't been covered before, and just start off right from the get-go with the partnership with Terex Finlay. So they have, they offer the most comprehensive line, the most individual pieces of equipment in each category. So there's cone crushers, jaw crushers, impact crushers. We have incline screens, heavy duty screens, and track conveyors.
What is that? You kind of touched on it, but what is the area? Does it go by state, or is there a different way you have a certain region that you're servicing?
Right. So right now we cover Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and the Caribbean. So with Georgia, Florida, and Alabama being the main focus on the area that we cover. So.
The Caribbean, is that like not a different Caribbean than the one that everybody knows, right?
No, that's the same one. So
Okay.
that's just kind of geographically the closest area that Finlay has a dealer
Okay.
down. So it's just the owner of the company came from corporate, and so he already had a relationship with a lot of the people down there. So it was just
Gotcha.
kind of led into that. It made sense. He already knew that he already had relationships with the guys down there, and so it worked out that way.
What are the main client list? Like, are you doing like the mining, excavating, like road builders? Like, who is I mean, obviously not the whole list, but
So in the southeast here, the main thing that probably we would do is gonna be yes, we do quarries like Rockmart Slate, uh, granite quarries, things like that. But it's recycling of concrete and asphalt is huge in the southeast.
okay,
It's huge in Florida because of the lack of virgin aggregate quarries there. So there's a quarries located close to Miami, but in the Panhandle in North Florida, um, getting aggregate to a job site is a problem. The transportation costs are so high that it makes it just it's astronomical to try to buy that aggregate. So they're not they're almost forced into creating aggregate. So if you can imagine going into a job site having to tear up a bunch of concrete, you have your aggregate on site there. So it cuts down on transportation costs having to remove the aggregate from the site and bring it back to it. It just makes sense. So if you go in and have to tear up a bunch of concrete or tear down a building to do demo, and then there's fill that's needed on that job site,
right.
you can take a jaw crusher and crush that material to a 6-inch minus material, and then you have your fill material right there on the job site.
So is it like, and I always find this quite interesting how these different regions have these different demands based on, there's a certain amount of quarries in this region, so it ends up being this type of industry. Do you sort of learn as you go, or even right from the beginning? I'm not sure if you were with them from the start, but if do you sort of is each region, are you continually sort of having to stay up to date on what they have going on, or just as customers reach out? Like, how do you sort of that business development side of things?
Well, so north of Atlanta, there's a lot of granite. You get up farther into the mountains in North Georgia, there's granite there. So there's quarries there. There's quarries around the Atlanta area and Birmingham. But Atlanta and Birmingham, Jacksonville areas are growing just tremendously right now. So we have basically any medium or large size contractor that goes onto these sites has gotten to the point where so 5 or 10 years ago, there was contract crushers who a general contractor would have to hire out somebody to do the crushing for them,
Hmm.
have to sub it out. So now any mid-range or large range company is starting to get to the point where they have the excavators and they have the loaders and things like that. They're performing the work themselves. So the recycling of so in Georgia, there's lots of DOT work, lots of bridges, roads being maintained, the city's growing. So in Georgia, they allow you to use recycled concrete aggregate as the base. So if you're on an interstate and there's an 8-inch base on there, they're going to allow you to put 6 inches of recycled aggregate at the bottom of that base, as long as it's topped by 2 inches of virgin aggregate. So it's tremendous price savings, like we talked about before, on the job site. So if you can imagine having a track machine on an interstate, and you can just go along right there where you're taking up the material and crush it, and then put it back right there where it came from as you go along, and you move down the highway doing that, and that cuts a lot of cost, transportation, fuel, things like that.
I wanted to kind of just jump up ahead to another section because I really wanted to cover it because you have David coming on, he's sort of running it through on the Slate side, but you mentioned two units. I can't even remember what they were off the top. I think it was the I-20 and the 88-3, right?
Right. So there's the I-120 impact crusher
Yeah.
that they use, which is a 44-inch wide opening in the chamber and a 41-inch diameter rotor. So it's a very productive machine. Can produce 250 tons plus an hour, no problem. So that's the machine that they went from an older, I think it was a 36 by 36 impact machine up to a 44-inch impactor, which production went very high. So and then the 883 Plus is a 2-deck heavy duty scalping screen, which it has two 16 by 5 screen decks on it. So that screen can handle 600 tons plus of material going across it in a scalping application.
Well,
But Rockmart's using that 120, and they use the 120 and the 110 in different applications and feed that into the 883 or into a 2-deck incline machine, and that 883 will handle anything basically that those crushers can put out.
what I was wondering is in that, so it's being used for that application. So what, again, I have to ask these questions sometimes. I'm like, the experts that are sitting here listening are like, that's such an obvious answer, but
Right.
I have to ask it. What other applications would that unit be? What are some examples of where that unit would be? Both the 120 and the 88.3.
How would they be used at Rockmart, or just in general
Well,
overall?
like in an asphalt operation or something
Okay.
like that. What are some different ones?
So the 120 would be used like we're talking about just a minute ago with the 1.5-inch base material on the highway. So you can take that machine in an open circuit. We also make it in a closed circuit recirculating application. And so you can take that machine and basically set it up with a recirculating application to produce 1.5-inch base material. So you can take one machine out onto a job site and you feed the stock material into the machine, and it will basically keep that material in that loop until it comes out on the end finished conveyor at the size that you want it. So a lot of people make 2-inch base material or 1.5-inch base material. And it's just one machine that will crush and screen the material. It'll come out the size you need it. And also in Georgia, are allowed to use around 30% recycled asphalt. So anytime a job's going on, so it's huge for these asphalt companies that the petroleum and the aggregate and the binder is already in the asphalt. So if you can imagine being able to take 30% of in the plant going into the new asphalt, if you could imagine taking, what they do is they stockpile, they take the material from a milling machine and put it in a dump truck and take it back to the asphalt plant, or they just dig it up and take it back to the asphalt plant, and they would screen it and crush it and get it down to a 1/2 inch or 7/16 minus material, which they can take then and add back to the asphalt plant. So if you can imagine not having to buy that petroleum again, not having to buy the aggregate that's already in the asphalt, within that, you save a lot of money doing that.
Okay, so we got the 120, the 883, Kelly, can you sort of give same sort of thing? What are the other
Mhm.
applications where you're going to see that unit?
So that 883 is very, very versatile. It can be used after a crusher, so you can crush into an 883 and use it as a finished aggregate separator, and get your 57 stone fours, base mix, things like that. But also the next day you can take it and use it as a scalping deck. So in a quarry application like Rockmart, you can put the material through it like we talked about, but also you could take it out to a job site where they're doing grubbing or where they're taking topsoil, things like that, or backfill. And instead of having to take traditionally like with a bulldozer with a root rake on it or excavator, you can just take that material that has the roots, rocks, stumps, things like that in it, and put it across that 883 and basically screen out a finished topsoil, or if you're using material used for grade, you can finish you can screen it to a 3-inch minus for like a backfill material. So you can use it to screen finished aggregate. You can use it to screen topsoil. We have a lot of mulch and compost facilities here around the Atlanta area, and so you can actually switch. You can use the box like it is to screen soil and things like that. But you can also switch that box out for a Spolic box, which has the flip flow mat technology on the bottom, and it's great in sticky applications. So you can go one day from screening aggregate to the next day of screening compost, topsoil, anything that's sticky or hard to screen. That machine will work out great for. Here in Georgia, we have a lot of clay soil, so it's real fine, sticks together. It's hard to break apart. It works great for that as well.
Do a lot of customers or potential customers, do they realize that? I mean, obviously they probably are more experts in the industry than I am. Do they realize how versatile the machines are? Or is there a lot of conversations that need to realize, oh, this unit can be used for, this asphalt, but it can also be used if there's high clay materials, things like
All
that.
right, so we have a lot of people come to us and want a trommel screen for a topsoil application or a compost application, but they also have other things they want to use it for too. And so
Right.
traditionally, the issues or the things that will hold you back on a trommel screen would be size of material being able to go through there. So if you put something too big into a trommel screen, that lifting action carries the material up, and as it drops, it's going to break the screens out. So what you get with that 883 with the flip flow mat technology, and it's basically a combination of the great things about a vibrating screen and a trommel screen mixed together. It's going to allow you to put more larger material through there and not break anything, but it's also going to allow you to screen out that finer material as well, and with at a higher rate of production. So and then we have people who think about an incline screen. That's what they're used to crushing into, but the challenges with the incline screen and another application other than just crushing into it would be clearances. So there's not as much clearance when you turn the corner and go down a deck or go down to the next deck. There's not as much clearance there, and so we have a lot of people come to us wanting a trommel screen or come to us wanting an incline screen, and we go and look at the application. And really what can be done is, instead of buying two different machines for two different applications, you can buy one machine and use it for both applications, and it'll work great. With a couple hours of time, you can change out the mesh in that machine and be running and doing something totally different.
Yeah. Is there another example to you? We've obviously touched on the I-120, the 883. Is there another unit that sort of stands out to you as it's that versatile unit, multiple applications, that sort of, maybe people even don't realize all it can do?
Yeah, so we have a machine. It's a J1160, which is a jaw crusher. It's a 40-inch jaw crusher. It's lightweight compared to the larger jaw crushers. It's going to be in that 80,000 pound range, which in the southeast here doesn't require the extra wide load permits. It's much cheaper to transport, less axles, less setup time, and the machine will run in forward and reverse. And so what that allows you to do is, in a jaw crusher, one plate sits still and the other one toggles, and basically makes a circle towards the other plate. And when you crush concrete or you crush granite or virgin material, that thing is running forward. But you can also run asphalt through this jaw crusher, because you can switch the rotation of the jaw, and basically instead of forcing down like this, the machine is going to raise up the material this way and help it to spread out. So the issue with asphalt, if you were to crush it like this, is going to create heat and the material will start to stick back together. But if you can take that jaw and run it back the other way like this, it's going to lift and separate the material. So you can actually crush asphalt with the jaw crusher. And one of the other great things that that's going to allow you to do is, if you get a blockage or something stuck in that jaw crusher, the last thing you want to do is have to have guys go in there, or go in there with sledgehammers or chains like we always used to have to do, get in there to get the material out of there. But what that'll allow you to do is take that machine that was running like this and stop it and toggle it back the other way. That will help that blockage lift and separate. So you can take something. So instead of having to send your guys down in there to get it out, you can take the machine and work it back and forth like this, back and forth, and help to break that material apart. And so it's a great size machine. It's got you can close it down fairly small. So like in a recycling application, you can close it down to probably 1.5 inch closed side setting. And so what that's going to allow you to do is to produce 57 stone or smaller material out of a primary crusher that would typically not be able to do those things.
When I hear you talk this through, all that is coming to my mind is, if I'm around people that haven't been around a lot of this machinery, they think that I know something. And I've had people say it. And then the more I talk to people like yourself, I go, oh boy, I should not even bring it up in a conversation, because there's actually so much to learn in these units, because they are designed, that you've got all these designs. And I had the same conversation with Terex Finlay when Darren was on, is that all these applications, and then there's all these specifications that go along with the application. It's just crazy how much actually goes in to making these units. And these are not, we're not talking, we're not talking 50 grand for a machine. We're talking these big units that are big investments for people.
Add another zero.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. It's very fascinating. I wanted to kind of, before we wrap up the interview, what is the range? If someone's coming to you, they're watching this episode and they want to have a conversation, is there kind of a tons per hour range that's sort of that sweet spot for Finlay, or Finlay Eastern and Terex Finlay, or is it quite extensive? What can be done?
Yeah, so we have people who do a lot of, so it'd be 0 to 250 tons an hour would probably be the first category there. That would be people who rent machines occasionally. smaller construction companies, smaller guys who don't need a whole lot of production, but they see the value in being able to take some concrete off a job site and take it back to their facility and crush it up and have it for other jobs, or have people in the area come by aggregate for them. So that we have lots of compact impact crushers, and then we have a J 960, which would be the size smaller than the 1160 that we talked about earlier. That would be easy to set up. Not much time to get it going. Very mobile, easy to haul. Can get you the production rate that you need in a small thing like that. So we would have a J 960 and a 863, which would be the little brother of the 883. That would be great in applications like that. The next category would probably be 250 to 500 tons an hour. Those would be producers. Those would be contract crushers, people who all they do is go and crush other people's material. So they have a job where they have 10,000 tons or 100,000 tons of concrete to crush, and they go in there and they would use 120, like we talked about, or a J 1170. They'd use 883s, 6 series incline screens, 684, things like that to get that production. They have to produce high levels of material to be profitable and make money. So that would be the 250 to 500 ton an hour range. And then we have 500 plus tons an hour, which would be quarries and things like that. So those would be multiple machines. That would be a primary jaw crusher into a cone crusher, several screens, conveyor belts, moving material back around. So that would be the 500 plus tons an hour. So it's 0 to 250, 250 to 500, and then 500 plus.
And then what you're saying is you sort of see these different, I mean, when you get 500 plus, you kind of know, okay, this is going to be a quarry. And in that starting range, these are people that are doing these essentially smaller contracts and then are mobile.
Right. And with the very wide range, the most versatile range of equipment that Terex Finlay offers, we can fit them with the size machine that they need. So instead of trying to take a machine that's really too big for somebody and get it to work for them, too much initial cost, too expensive to move around, we have the right size machine for that application. And then if we go into somebody, we know that they need 500 tons an hour, then we have larger, like the J 1175, J 1480, things like that are much larger, have much higher production rates, mixed with cone crushers and incline screens that we can get to that volume that they need to produce.
Well, hopefully we get you on again at some point to unpack and actually look at. It'd be an interesting thing to look at these ranges and sort of these configurations throughout that. It'd be very and informative, to say the least.
Yeah.
Thanks a lot, Kelly, for coming on the show. Anybody who watches this show knows I when it comes down to it, I love the equipment. That's definitely where my background is from.
Right.
So I love unpacking it. So thanks for being on the show. Thanks for bringing in Derek, David. Thanks for bringing him onto the show as well. It's very interesting, and hopefully we'll have you on again soon.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, everyone. Hello, Gowdy. How was that? It was good. All right.
It was good. I had no audio.
No
there.
audio. That at the end, I got behind. I was trying to Google all the equipment. So hopefully Kelly can provide a few links so that we can bring that up for the audience and images while he was listing off some of that equipment.
Yeah, absolutely.
That configuration, that sort of fascinates me. The different rates of production mixed with a different configuration. I'd like to unpack that one day. Where could people go to follow, like, share, comment, suggest guests? Tell us how we can improve.
Well, definitely go to our YouTube channel to subscribe, because you definitely don't want to miss a single episode of the Crownsmen Show, Mining Now, Crownsmen Energy, Crownsmen Egg, and of course, you definitely want to watch more of episodes like this. So subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can follow us, like us on Facebook, LinkedIn, all that kind of thing. And contact us, info@crownsmen.com, if you would like to be on one of these shows, or would like to recommend, like Jared said, someone else to be on the show.
It's surprising that I've been reaching out to, I invite people to be on the show as I'm going through LinkedIn. I see interesting companies, and And I'm surprised at how many people I send them the message, and I mean, within minutes,
Yeah.
they're saying, yes, I'd like to be a part of it. A lot of people, I think they don't want to ask. But we're telling you, are more than welcome. If
Mhm.
you are in heavy industry, that is the premise that you have to fall under there.
Yeah.
If you're in heavy industry, we want to talk to you and see about getting you on the show. So
For sure.
please do that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Gowdy. Thanks you to Finlay Eastern and their customer. I'm just Rockmart. Wow. Rockmart Slate. It's great to have these kind of companies. Thank you for Terex Finlay for continuing to support the Crownsmen Show. And we will see you on the next episode of the Crownsmen Show.